So my therapist, Ivan, talked me through creating a safety plan. The safety plan is this step-by-step plan I'm supposed to follow if I notice a suicidal crisis starting. The first step of my safety plan is to identify my risk factors, triggers, and warning signs. Risk factors make me less resilient to stress and more likely to have a suicidal crisis. Before my last suicidal crisis, I had insomnia for several days, which makes it harder for me to deal with stressful experiences. Triggers are things that happen that stress me out and previously led to a suicidal crisis. Just before my last suicidal crisis started, I read a rejection letter from a job that I was applying for. Warning signs are thoughts, emotions, physical sensations, or behaviors that indicate a suicidal crisis might be starting. For example, at the start of my last suicidal crisis, I started having thoughts like my kids would be better off without me. I felt like my heart was going to beat right out of my chest, and I could not catch my breath. If I notice thoughts or physical sensations like that in the future, then I know I need to pull out my safety plan and start following it right away. Once I decide to follow my safety plan, the next step is for me to do things that I can do by myself to help distract me from my unhelpful thoughts and feelings. I can take a run on my treadmill while watching my favorite reality TV show, or I can use the VA Mindfulness app on my phone to do a relaxation exercise. If the things I have done to distract myself do not seem to be working, the next step is for me to go to places where I can be around other people, or to talk with people that I know about non-suicide related stuff. I can go to a coffee shop and read about the new movies being released while drinking a cup of coffee. As far as people I can contact to take my mind off my suicidal thoughts, I can call my friend Mary and talk about our kids or last weekend's football game. If social distraction doesn't work, the next step is for me to call people I trust who I can talk about my suicidal crisis with. The first person I should call in this situation is Jane. I trust her with my life. She's dealt with depression too, and I know she'll be supportive of me. I let her know that she's on my safety plan to call if I need to talk with a friend about my suicidal crisis, and she said she'd be there for me. If talking about my suicidal crisis with people I trust doesn't work, I can start reaching out for some professional support. I can call my VA therapist, Ivan. If it is during normal business hours, he can usually get back to me before the end of the day. Then we can talk about my suicidal crisis and how I can deal with it. If it's outside of regular business hours, or if I feel I need to talk to somebody right away, I can always call the Veterans Crisis Line anytime, day or night, and speak to someone there. If I or the Veterans Crisis Line operator are concerned that I can't keep myself safe, especially if I'm already starting to prepare to make a suicide attempt, I can go straight to the emergency room and ask for a same-day appointment. It's kind of a pain, but I know it'll be a much bigger mess if I get so hopeless and suicidal that I do something to hurt myself. If I'm worried that I can't keep myself safe on a trip into the hospital, I know I can call 911 to get emergency services. The last step of my safety plan is to make my environment safe before a suicidal crisis starts. That means taking steps ahead of time to put space and time between me and lethal means. Lethal means are things that I might use to hurt myself during a suicidal crisis. Based on my last suicide attempt, I know that the lethal means that I'm most likely to try to use are over-the-counter medications. So now, I only buy small travel-sized bottles of over-the-counter medications that I need. Yes, it costs a bit more to buy those smaller bottles, but it would be a lot more costly if I make a suicide attempt during a suicidal crisis. Ivan and I reviewed my safety plan together, and I took a picture of it with my phone so that I can pull it up whenever needed.